Good morning, everybody. Just want to welcome everybody to the start of our conference for today. And just want to welcome everybody in. And it would be really, really great if you could just sort of pop into the chat where you are contacting us from. Great, I see we got more people coming in. Calgary, hey Calgary. Vancouver. And we've got some, we've got a lot of Ontario coming in. Winnipeg, great to see. Oh, we've got people BC, New York, Vancouver Island. Great. So we're going to get started in just a few moments. We're just going to wait for everybody to get settled and to get time to get logged in. Great. All right, so we're just going to wait maybe a minute or more to make sure we kind of capture everybody who's maybe having a few little technical difficulties signing in. Great to see so many people. In such a diverse areas of our country. Montreal, good morning. Good, London, Ontario. Good, lots of people from BC here today. Great. And okay. So I think we'll just get started here. So welcome to your Life After Cancer conference. Today is our final presentation of our conference. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada is proud to introduce today's presentation titled Living Well with and Beyond Cancer, the Vital Role of Physical Activity. Exercise is a vital component of your aftercare and provides not only physical benefits, but also mental and emotional benefits. In this session, Dr. Nicole Culos-Reed, a professor in the faculties of Kinesiology and Medicine at the University of Calgary, will share resources that will support moving for health and wellness for individuals living with and beyond cancer. My name is Catherine. I'm the Community Services Lead. I will be your moderator of this online event. As there are many of you, we invite you to type your questions and comments in the Q&A box of your Zoom webinar panel throughout the presentation. An LLSC staff member will monitor those questions. I will read some of your questions aloud at the end of the presentation during the Q&A period. Today's presentation will also be recorded. Therefore, you can listen to it again on our website. Next slide, please, Nicole. At the LLSC, our mission is to cure blood cancers and improve the quality of life of those touched by a blood cancer and their families. We offer support to those affected by blood cancer throughout the blood cancer experience. Do not hesitate to contact the community services lead in your area to learn more. As you've surely heard, we launched our brand new website, bloodcancers.ca, last November 2021. Our goal is to better serve the community and offer an improved experience. On our website, you will find all of our past webcasts, our podcast channel, information sheets, practical tools to help you navigate the cancer experience, and more. Visit www.bloodcancers.ca. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight our various informative fact sheets to support you after cancer, whether it's to help you manage brain fog due to treatment, communicating with your healthcare team, or how to adapt to cancer-related fatigue. We offer a variety of easy-to-read and concise fact sheets for your needs. Visit bloodcancer.ca to find all of our fact sheets. Next slide, please. It's now time to begin today's presentation, Living Well with and Beyond Cancer, the vital role of physical activity. Next slide, please. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Nicole Culos-Reed. She's a professor in the Faculty of Kinesiology at the University of Calgary, an adjunct professor in the Department of Oncology at the Cummings School of Medicine and researcher, Department of Psychosocial Resources at the Tom Baker Cancer Center, and Alberta Health Services. She is a health behavior change researcher who builds, implements, and assesses the effectiveness of exercise programs for individuals living with cancer and beyond. Thank you so much for being here today. Over to you, Dr. Nicole Culos-Reed.
Thank you, Catherine. Can everyone hear me? A thumbs up, maybe Bruce, if you can hear me, just to make sure. Perfect. Wonderful. Well, it's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you to the Society for inviting me to speak at this national virtual conference on your life after cancer. As Catherine said, I'm going to be speaking about the role of physical activity, movement, or exercise in this cancer journey. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that wherever we are across Canada, that we live and work on traditional territories. For myself here in Calgary, that is the territories of the Blackfoot and the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This also includes that the city of Calgary is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. Before I begin, I just want to set the stage a little bit about what we're talking about. So I'm going to use the terms of both physical activity and exercise. Physical activity is all your movement, whatever you're doing. So if you get up and down during this talk at home, if you're stretching, that's movement, that's physical activity. And really the overall goal is to have you engage in more movement or physical activity across your usual day, your activities, then being sedentary, then sitting down. So I always say when I give talks like this, it would be great if we had headphones on and we're out walking, right? Enjoying the sunshine wherever you may be, hopefully not the rain, and just moving as much as possible versus sitting down. I'm also going to speak about more structured movement that we call exercise, where we're really purposefully engaging in something for the purpose of health outcomes. Now that can be physical or fitness health outcomes, but it also can be psychosocial, mental, emotional well-being health outcomes. We know from the evidence that you're going to see today that all movement is beneficial. And even if you're not moving at what you're going to see that is recommended, our guidelines, that's okay, because all movement really does count. Every minute that you move can add up. So we have evidence on physical activity or movement in general in oncology and cancer care. And we also have a lot of evidence for the role of specific exercise interventions. And I'm going to share a little bit of both of this. But extensive evidence across thousands of studies published looking at the value of exercise in cancer control, so in preventing cancer, but most importantly for our purpose today, the impact of exercise after a diagnosis, so on cancer, survivorship phases, living with and beyond cancer. To give you an idea of that, this review here was published relatively recently in 2018, and it was a review of meta-analyses, so different studies done that pulled together evidence. So there were 65 articles included in this review, 140 independent meta-analyses, 99% of these reported the benefits of exercise, 75% of these had statistically significant, so that's using our analyses, and had statistically significant impact of exercise on different outcomes. The outcomes you can see around the circle here, right? So HRQL, that's health-related quality of life. That and cancer-related fatigue, you can see at the bottom, are our two most studied outcomes. Then there's different specific fitness outcomes, cardiovascular fitness, muscular fitness. And then a big psychosocial outcome that's been studied, depression, right? So a lot of different outcomes studied, and all of them really showing the benefits of exercise. There's not really a downside here. You can see most of the work's been in breast cancer survivorship. So that's our #1 study population, followed by prostate, then colorectal, and then a host of others. Also important, you can see overall very safe to use exercise as an intervention tool. So 3.5% reported adverse events, and all of these adverse events were on that low to moderate end. So, muscle soreness or twisting of an ankle, losing balance, those sorts of ideas. Across these studies, we use a tool called GRAY to look at the quality of the research. And most of them are rated low to moderate quality, primarily because of small sample sizes. Okay, because lots of studies done in different sites across the world and relatively small sample sizes. So it doesn't mean that exercise is not a high quality intervention. It just means a lot of times when we do it, some of the markers don't reach those highest standards, including the large sample size. Now, specifically for this talk today, we pulled up one of the most recent reviews that's looked at hematological cancers and the role of exercise. And so this review was published looking at aerobic physical exercise. So things that are good for your heart, your lungs, right? Get you moving. And it was a review of RCTs. RCTs are randomized controlled trials. So in this work, 18 RCTs were included for a total of just under 1,900 participants. And you can see the different types here of populations that were included. Overall, from this review of aerobic physical exercise interventions, they found that there were significant benefits on the use of exercise for fatigue management. And I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. They saw trends for improvement of the psychosocial outcome of depression, which is very important. And we know overall that exercise is a very important tool for improving mental health and mental well-being in general. And then across these 18 studies, inconclusive evidence around other exercise benefits, ranging from fitness benefits to other psychosocial outcomes. And that's primarily, again, because many of them had low sample sizes. And we see sometimes there was a benefit, sometimes a trend, but not significant, right? So again, it doesn't mean that exercise isn't beneficial. It just means based on their population and what they measured, maybe didn't see the highest impact. And that can have a lot to do with the design of the study. So if we start to look across this evidence, really a summary statement is that exercise is both safe and beneficial for all individuals living with cancer across the entire cancer continuum, because there's different phases where we see this research being done, all the way from pre-treatment. So upon diagnosis, before treatment starts, it's usually called prehabilitation. And we know exercise can be used then to improve people's sense of control, to improve maybe some of the fitness indices, to prepare them better for treatment. And then the bulk of the research has really been done in 2 phases, treatment and immediately post-treatment. Right? And different uses for exercise and different outcomes we might be looking at. So during treatment, not necessarily trying to improve fitness, but usually trying to use it to get people just to move more and to impact some of the commonly seen side effects of treatment to help to manage those side effects. And then post-treatment is where we start to look for improvements, where we might be able to actually target changes as the body naturally recovers to improve different outcomes, fitness outcomes, physical outcomes, and psychosocial outcomes. And then the last 2 phases are into longer term survivorship phases, so living with cancer, but also living with advanced cancer. And that's a relatively new area of research. It used to be that advanced cancer, we didn't kind of bother with those patients. Maybe it was too much of a burden already, or maybe they didn't think there was going to be benefits. And yet we absolutely know that individuals living with advanced cancer are experiencing longer periods of time of living with the disease, and quality of life is of central concern. And exercise is one of our best tools to enhance quality of life. So a lot of rationale for looking at maybe different modes of activity or different ways of delivering it for that specific population. Across the research, here are some of the commonly seen outcomes in our different studies. And you saw this in the review, but just as a bit of an example, we see everything from the psychosocial indices of emotional distress, sadness, anxiety, and depression, all the way to the other side and using exercise to manage treatment-related side effects. And then some specific examples in there. Again, our 2 most studied outcomes in exercise oncology our quality of life. And we know beyond a doubt that individuals who report being active report a higher quality of life than individuals who report being sedentary. Okay, so whatever that encapsulates for you, whether it's physical functioning, whether it's having more energy, whether it's interacting with others, right? Those can all be captured under quality of life, and we can see various indices improved with exercise. And then the second most studied outcome is cancer-related fatigue, right? We know this is a very troublesome side effect that can negatively impact quality of life. And so there's been a lot of focus in the research on the role of exercise for cancer-related fatigue. And I was able to be involved in a series of systematic reviews with a team led by Lillian Sung out of Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And this review that we published looked at the ability of physical activity to reduce fatigue in patients with cancer and stem cell transplant recipients, looking really at meta-analysis of randomized trials. And so what we know happens with fatigue, right? Just fatigue in general, you feel tired, you want to sit and rest, right? But that sitting and resting actually leads to physical deconditioning in the body, including loss of muscle mass, muscle atrophy. That in turn actually increases fatigue, right? So you can see how someone get into this vicious downward spiral, really, of fatigue. I'm tired, I sit and rest, I decondition, I become more tired, so I sit and rest, right? We have so much evidence for the role of exercise as probably our most beneficial tool to deal with this cancer-related fatigue. So we see that exercise, and the result of this review really showed that exercise is our best evidence-based tool, right? There isn't a pill for fatigue. You know, we rule out all other medical causes potentially for fatigue like low iron, right? When we deal with anything that might be a cause of it, and we know there can be multiple causes to fatigue, exercise is our best tool, movement, right? But it's movement at the right levels and at the right time. It can't just be, okay, everybody move more, because that might cause more fatigue in some people, right? So it is really taking then a tailored approach to initiating some more movement, some more physical activity, and building up to exercise to really help alleviate this cancer-related fatigue in particular. Okay, so in a bit of a summary here, we know that exercise is good for all individuals across the treatment trajectory. It doesn't interfere with treatment. How we use exercise, what we might be using for, really does differ depending on where somebody is along their cancer journey, right? From preparation for treatment to maintenance of symptoms and side effects during treatment to improving outcomes after. And one thing we do know, this important bottom point, supervised exercise can yield superior results versus unsupervised, right? So having that feedback from a professional, having that accountability, right, in a class setting, whether it's individual or with others, that can be really important for ensuring the benefits are obtained. Based on all this evidence, there are guidelines. And I want you to take a look at these, but I don't want you to freak out looking at these and go, oh, I'm nowhere near that. What am I doing? Or I don't even know what these mean, right? So if you're not in the fitness world seeing aerobic activity, 50 to 75% HRR, who knows what that means? But the numbers are kind of important, okay? So aerobic activity, anything that gets your heart rate going, your lungs, right? So you're walking, you're cycling, you're swimming, you're running, all of those things. And the guidelines are for 90 minutes a week for individuals living with cancer to get aerobic activity. Strength activity, so that's anything using your muscles. It can be your own body weight, it can be stretchy bands, it can be free weights, it can be machines. 2 days of strength training per week. And that means, you know, if you're sitting there up and down out of your chair, you're using your big leg muscles, right? That's strength training. If you're focused on some upper body exercises, if you're doing bicep curls, right? If you're doing planks, any of that core strength, that's all strength training. So it's not necessarily hitting the gym and building big muscles. It's about maintaining functional fitness, ability to engage in your activity daily livings by working these muscles. And then the third component that's in our guidelines is flexibility, stretching. Having taught fitness for years, this is the one component of fitness that people often ignore, right? They do a class and then they leave because they don't have time to stretch at the end or cool down. And this is the easiest component, if you do it regularly, of our fitness to change. Right? So I encourage you as you listen to the rest of the talk to roll your shoulders out, to open up through your chest, fidget, move a little bit, see where you're holding tension, right? For most of us, especially as we sit and listen to things, we tend to start slumping, we round out through our shoulders. So I encourage you simply with your posture, open up to your chest, roll out. You can bend a little bit side to side if you're sitting down or lying down or stretching, point and flex your toes, right? Head, ear, shoulder to shoulder, all of those little things. So you can work this into your daily routine while you're making your coffee or a cup of tea in the morning, right? Can you stand there and just roll out through your neck? It doesn't have to be a structured class. It can be. I'm a yoga researcher. I firmly believe in the powers of engaging in this for longer periods of time, but it can be as simple as just scanning your body daily and moving through your range of motion at your joints. So those are the numbers of the exercise guidelines, but there's also some really important information that goes along with them. Number one, they're evidence-based. So we know that exercise is safe and feasible during treatment. We don't have to wait till after. Sometimes, given the burdens of treatment and how sick people feel, it may be easier to wait till after, but we still want you to move as much as possible during treatment. After treatment, the evidence is clear. Exercise is essential for recovery and fitness. Okay, so we know that there's links to overall well-being and quality of life. We know there's management of some of the symptoms and side effects. And long-term, we know there's survival benefits to being physically active. The key is this last point in gray. Individualization and tailoring are absolutely necessary. So if you go back a slide, right, to these guidelines, great, but this might not be where everybody is or where everybody can start at. And so it's this tailored approach that's really critical. What one person can do and another person can do depends on their health status and their fitness status, and then all sorts of other factors. So taking a start low, progress slow approach, and then building up minutes over time, and whether you ever get to those guideline minutes, doesn't really matter. And it matters, but it doesn't matter. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter because the guidelines are based on the best evidence, but if you get to 60 minutes a week and that's what you can maintain, then that's excellent. Now, despite all this evidence, despite we know exercise is good for all of us, and it can be really good when you're managing a chronic disease like cancer, the bad news is that most people aren't physically active. And in cancer survivorship, those numbers are quite low. Right? So we know that it's not built into standard cancer care. It's not necessarily fully supported during treatment in terms of being just part of your pathway. And then it can be hard. If you haven't been physically active pre-cancer diagnosis, it can be really hard to simply start it. And we know that that inactivity is associated with other comorbidities, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, or obesity and overweight, right? So despite our evidence, we know these levels remain low. There's a typo there. It should be 17 to 43%, not 473% of individuals living with and beyond cancer meet guidelines. Okay, so really low numbers meeting guidelines despite having all this evidence. And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of barriers to getting started, right? And we're going to talk about this. And when I switch over to the resources, going to really talk about what you can start to do to address some of these barriers. But we know that individuals want this. Okay, so when we've done all the studies and looking at what do people want, they want more information. They want exercise counseling. They want access to exercise resources, but it hasn't been built. We haven't translated that exercise evidence into resources. And then there's other barriers. So we don't have community-based programs, other resources. We have to build exercise oncology into standard cancer care. If we know it has all these benefits on outcomes, including quality of life, then we have this incentive and this necessity to really make sure that we can make it accessible to individuals. All right, so based on all the evidence, based on we know people aren't doing it, that's really then kind of formed the link for the basis of the work my group does in building resources, building what you, individuals living with and beyond cancer, should have access to or must have access to. And I'm going to start with some of the big messages before I get into, okay, here's some of what you can start to access. So the first one is simple. Take away the exercise guidelines and all the specifics. The message is simply to move more, right? If you can start to build in some of those structured exercise minutes daily, that's awesome, right? But if it's simply you get out for a light walk, you're stretching a little bit, you're just moving throughout your day, sitting less, moving more, that is even more important. As you start to move more, the key is to listen to your body. You are the expert, right? So there's the guidelines, there's the here's what you can do. Do what makes your body feel good. Because at the end of the day, we want you to build this habit of moving more. And you're very unlikely to do that if every time you do it, it doesn't feel good, right? So what feels good for your body? For some, that's walking. For others, it's getting on a bike. For others, it's going to a gym or a class where they distract themselves by having some fun. For others, it's swimming, right? So whatever it is for you, all movement counts and all movement can be good for your body. There are a couple big factors that we know support building this habit of moving more. The big one is social support, and I'm going to come back to this in a bit. Active lifestyles are easier to maintain, to build that habit, if you've got some support around you, right? So it's not just all up to you, and often for behavior change, we put the onus just on the individual. And we're trying to change that by building a culture of change, a culture of supporting moving more for individuals living with cancer. So family or friends to be active with you, someone that just even checks in on you to ask if you got your minutes in. And as you're going to see from our resources, can you join one of our online programs or supports or in your own community? And then the flip side of that is to consider what's stopping you from being more active right now. Right? What is that for you? Because we all have different barriers. It may be that you don't like exercise. It may be you don't have anything accessible to you. It may be hard, even if you've got something for you, to sustain that over time. So we're going to kind of start by tapping into some of these barriers and what that means for you and starting to build the habit of moving more. So we know the number one barrier for all of us when it comes to exercise or more movement is lack of time. Right? We say, oh, I just don't have time. I'm so busy. I work, I've got kids, I've got grandkids, I'm doing this, that, and the other. And I agree, it can be really hard to fit in the minutes. I'm a working mom, and I often look at the end of my day going, I didn't get my exercise in, right? I think though it comes more down to prioritizing it. And often we're bad at prioritizing self-care, right? Especially females. We kind of do it for everybody else and get everything done and don't do it for ourselves. Right? So I'd like you to think about flipping that lack of time and going, well, where do I have 5 minutes in my day? Where do I have 10 minutes in my day? Can I just get a breath of fresh air and get outside for a quick walk? Right? It doesn't have to be putting gym clothes on and getting to a gym, right? It can be just about where do you make it into your day? There's other things here, right? Lack of ability. I've never been active. I don't know what to do. Lack of confidence. I'm scared. I've got cancer. I've got these symptoms. What's safe for me? Right? It can be lack of support. Or, oh, I am so tired, I just am not motivated to try to do this, right? So there's lots of different reasons. And in our programs and in our resources, we really try to start to address these to help you understand, build the ability, build your confidence, and build that motivation to be more active. And we do that by building in these behavior change strategies. You're going to see this slide again later with our Excel program, but right now I'm going to go through some of these things. So behavior change strategies are the skills we give our participants and our trainers, but it's the actual self-regulatory skills we want to build in people so that they gain control over building this habit of moving more, of exercise, right? So goal setting, self-monitoring, planning, barrier management, building social support. These are all skills that you can learn about and you can start to build into your lifestyle to support moving more. So the big one, lots of evidence for this, goal setting, and I'm sure you've all heard this. I'm sure you set goals. It's really important, though, that we do this in a way that's going to facilitate our change, our exercise habit. And so a couple key points here. You've likely heard this idea of SMART goals before. We've tweaked it a little bit with our R squared, T squared in the SMART. But SMART goals really important. So if I think about being more active and I might go, okay, well, my goal is to do the Terry Fox run in September. For everybody who knows me, that would be no surprise. I've done Terry Fox run my entire life. I love Terry Fox. So for me, that's often okay, I'm going to do this run. And that's a great goal to have. It's an awesome activity. It's an awesome cause. And it's good to have a longer term goal. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I just have that, that's far way off. I've got other things going on. You really want to break that goal down and say, okay, what am I going to do this week that's going to help me get to the Terry Fox run and be able to do that without being out of breath, with being able to walk the whole 30 minutes of it, whatever it might be, right? A 5K or a 10K. So I start to break it down and say, okay, well, what do I need to do this week? And then that's where the SMART short-term goals come in, right? Make it really specific. Okay, I'm going to walk 3 times this week. Measurable. I'm going to walk for 20 minutes so I can measure that 20 minutes of my walking. I can do that. Or I see after the first week, I didn't do it 3 times, but I did it twice. So let's readjust that goal and see if we can build up 2 times a week for the first few weeks and then make it 3 times a week, right? So attainable, because if you never reach that goal, it becomes really demotivating, right? You want to reach it and reward yourself. Make it relevant and realistic to your lifestyle, right? I'm going to say I'm walking, and if I'm in monsoon season here in Calgary and the rain's coming down, probably won't get out walking in the pouring rain. right? Or in the winter with bad weather. So what is it that fits into your lifestyle for your short-term goals? And that can then change over time. And then really important is last two, timely and together, right? So set a time frame for your goals. And personally, I think having daily goals for activity as you start to build the habit can be absolutely empowering, right? What am I doing today? 5 minutes, start low. 10 minutes, perfect. And just get that in and then reward yourself. But together, that social support, I can't even overemphasize enough how important that can be. A walking buddy, an accountability person, an adult child in your life who you let know, I got my minutes in today, and they give you a virtual clap on your text messaging, whatever it might be, right? It can be all of those things. Having a dog is a form of social support because they can force you out on that walk. Okay, so lots of different pieces there, but goal setting, really critical. Set micro goals. We talk about these exercise snacks, right? Little minutes, right? Set your goals for getting in those exercise snacks throughout your day. Along with goal setting, and I'm a big person for this as much as we've got digital technology, what can you write down, right? What can you be accountable for and put up on your bathroom mirror so you see it every day? Your action plan, what you're going to do, planning, scheduling, tracking, updating, right? And there's a lot of evidence for this about being more accountable when we write something down, and it can be digitally writing it in your calendar. It can be actually writing it. And then we know that when we write it down, we're more committed to it, and then we can follow through and see, did we achieve it? So it keeps you accountable. It can enhance your confidence because you can forget sometimes where you came from, right? Oh man, I wasn't even doing 5 minutes, and look at me now. I'm getting in 10 minutes every single day from doing nothing at the beginning. Right? And then action planning helps you really look at those feedback loops of where do you need more support? What stopped you on a certain week? What are your barriers? And you understand then more what's affecting your behavior change. Because it's not just your motivation and your confidence. There's a lot of things going around in your lifestyles that can really impact that. Linked to this action planning is then scheduling it in, making it a priority. Right? We schedule in, getting our car oil changed. We schedule in our doctor's appointments. We schedule in lunch dates with friends. Make yourself important and schedule in your movement. Whatever it might be a class you join, it might be your walks, it might be stretching in the morning and taking 15 minutes to do a light yoga flow. Whatever it is, actually schedule it in. And so then again, it's another thing that makes you more accountable. You are less likely to just come up with an excuse, not a real barrier, but an excuse for not getting those minutes in, right? So I have a couple times in my phone timers that ping me to go, okay, can you just take a break right here and build it in my schedule so that then I do, even if it's not to the gym, but a quick walk, right? 10 minutes of moving, keeping my own clothes on, maybe I sweat a little, but that's okay, right? And then back to work again. So scheduling exercise is another strong skill. And we use this kind of paper version that you see on the screen. Right? Print out something like this, put it on your fridge, put it where you're going to see it, not on a desk buried under everything else, but where you'll see it so you can be accountable to it. All of this, goal setting, action planning, barrier management, all of this comes down to then self-monitoring and tracking, right? I think the journey, the process is really important. It's not just this outcome. And oftentimes we're hard on ourselves, right? We're like, oh, I should already be there. And we forget how much we've improved or where we've come from, right? From not being able to do a full squat to doing a squat, not being able to do balance activities to doing balance activities, right? There are so many changes that just happen. And if we're not monitoring and tracking for them, we might take them for granted and not congratulate ourselves for the progress being made. And so self-monitoring and tracking is really a way to start to build your confidence, to see your gains and to go, okay, I've made it to here. Well, maybe then I can make it to here. Something that at the beginning you never would have thought from here all the way up, right? And so really having this, reviewing what is working, seeing where your barriers are, right? And becoming really accountable to those barriers. And some you're going to be able to deal with and some maybe not yet. And that's okay. You can work around those ones that are truly barriers in your life. Okay, so adding in this self-monitoring and tracking and becoming aware of, okay, what supports you, what doesn't, what motivates you, what doesn't, what goals did you set that you attained, which ones did you have to reset so that you can attain them, right? Goals are only good if you can attain them eventually, right? Not super easy, but not unattainable. All of this can really help you develop that habit of moving more. And then back to this social support idea, right? Absolutely critical. And again, you can be someone who prefers to move alone and exercise alone, and that's absolutely okay. Maybe your support comes from resources, educational resources, or learning about it online, right? It doesn't have to mean that there's a person with you for everything, but building an environment around you that is supportive of you exercising, supportive of you moving more, whatever that looks like, your own research, a class you join, family members, friends, okay? All of those pieces can come into enhancing the likelihood that you stick with this. So to support this, right, okay, you can address barriers, you can build a habit. The team that I have has built a whole host of resources. So you don't have to just go, okay, this sounds great, but I don't actually know what to do. We've built worksheets and tips and resources that can get you going. And so the website you see at the top is our training website. And you can go there and everything's free. Okay, there's a tab called Thrivers. You go under there, there's worksheets, and you can see here the social support worksheet. So it gets you actually thinking about, where do I have support? Where might I need to build more? A maintenance worksheet, right? So you actually start, you can print these out, download them, print them out, and you can work through these to go, here's where my gaps are. Here's where my barriers are. Here's what I need to do next. So these are just 2 examples from our website. We've got tons and tons on there, covering all these different self-regulatory skills, other behavior change strategies, other educational resources. So I encourage you to go online to Thrive Health and take a look at what might support you in your journey. The other comprehensive resource we have there that is free, same website, is our free Thriver manual. And this, I think, is an excellent resource built by experts to guide your wellness across living well with and beyond cancer. So you can see there some of the different topics, the role of exercise, you playing an active role in your health, tailoring exercise, the role of nutrition, which, you know, nutrition goes hand in hand with moving more. You need the energy to move more, right? And often those 2 lifestyle behaviors really do go hand in hand. So there's a lot of excellent resources here to really help distill that, all that evidence, the evidence that we talked about, and bring it into practice for you. So it's an easy to read, lay friendly journal that you can download. You can PDF this and you can read it at your own leisure or print it out. The final piece I will say through this website is some of our more evidence-based training. So I think most of the participants listening today are individuals or family members going through this cancer journey. But we've also built training resources on this website for our fitness professionals. And so even if you're not a fitness professional, the information there may be of interest or useful. This is geared though to fitness and healthcare providers to really integrate exercise into their care, right? Into their roles that they have in the community or in clinical settings. So that's on the website as well. The last resource I want to highlight here is the videos that we have available for you. So I'm going to switch in just a second to talk about our exercise programs, because they're also available to all of you across Canada, at least. I know we had some international visitors on the webinar today, but we've also just got videos on our website at the University of Calgary, including 10 weeks of our 12-week program that I'm going to tell you about. And so if you are like, I'm already an exerciser, but I'd love some new ideas, or I do this at home on my own, our YouTube channel is awesome. And again, everything's free. So our website at the university, thriveforcancersurvivors.com. I encourage you to go there. You can look under resources and find the link to our YouTube channel. And you can just go in and see different videos for doing stuff at home. A lot of this came out of COVID. Some of it was before COVID, but a lot of this came out of COVID and the necessity of people not being able to access what they might usually in their community. Okay, so all of these resources, lots of educational pieces, videos, different things you can download for free. Now I want to tell you about what we've actually got in terms of programming. And the programming that we've built, a couple key things. So they're funded as research studies. And the big one we had over the past 6 years here in Alberta has been ACE. I'm not going to tell you all about this because I know you're not all in Alberta, but this has formed the basis for the program that I am going to tell you about, Excel. So just so you know, ACE is our Alberta Cancer Exercise. It's really what we're building here in Alberta to be part of standard cancer care. Right? That is our goal, is it's not seen as an extra. It's not just hopefully you find it. It's part of your journey that you're offered screening and tailored prescription for exercise just like you are given a tailored prescription for your cancer treatment. Okay, so this is in Alberta. We're currently working with Alberta Health Services to implement this. This is led by Dr. Margie McNeely at the University of Alberta and myself here at the University of Calgary. If you are in Alberta and you want to know more about this, or you're not familiar with it, you can email us ace@ucalgary.ca. Okay, ace@ucalgary.ca to learn more. But ACE, then, the success of what we've done, we've brought in over 2,400 participants into ACE in the first 5 years. That really led us to develop Excel, to fill the gap of what's available across Canada, right? And in particular, what's available for people outside of our major urban centers, where most exercise oncology resources are built and available. So Excel is a cancer survivorship team grant funded by CIHR, CCS, and supported by Alberta Cancer Foundation here in Alberta. And it is really that ACE model built out across Canada. So it targets specifically those in rural remote areas across Canada who have not had access to exercise oncology resources. It is a study that includes a free 12-week group-based exercise program with 2 classes a week, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. Importantly, it's led by trained exercise oncology instructors. So everybody who comes in is trained, given the educational resources and the opportunities to build experience, working specifically with individuals living with and beyond cancer. Almost all of the Excel program is delivered online via Zoom. So it was great timing with the pandemic hitting, because that's when we were funded with this. But it's also the necessity of reaching rural remote areas where we don't have enough people for a community-based class. So they can join classes with others. Our programs start every 12 weeks. So Excel is continually recruiting, and it's at sites across Canada. And our next programs start in fall 2022. So we're recruiting individuals now, we screen them, and then come end of August, early September, they're brought into the program. Excel is open to all individuals who have been diagnosed with cancer. So it's not one specific type, up to 3 years post-treatment. And if people are beyond that, if they have a physician's reason for being referred to Excel, they can come in even after the 3 years post-treatment. It's for adults, and speaking English, consenting in English is a necessity and one of our eligibility criteria. And individuals have to be able to participate in low to moderate activity. Because of the online delivery of this program, they have to have reliable internet and participate in the online classes. So you have to have a camera on an iPad or a computer. For safety reasons, it's cameras on for everybody, so our instructors can make sure everybody's safe. Safety is a big piece of this. So coming into Excel, individuals are screened to ensure they can exercise, and we obtain medical clearance if needed. You can see the Zoom screen right here. This is what an Excel class looks like. Everybody's exercising from their home. And depending on the needs of the participants, some are under the supervision of that trained instructor who's a clinical exercise physiologist. Some are with trained instructors that are group fitness instructors or certified personal trainers, right? So there's different levels of classes, really. As I mentioned, the exercise program, so it's 12 weeks. You come 2 times a week for an hour each class. The classes are designed to be what we call multimodal. So they cover those different exercise guideline areas: aerobic, cardiovascular training, strength training with functional movements, either own body weight, you don't need any equipment, or you can have light weights or bands, balance and flexibility. So it really covers all of those components of fitness. And again, it's on this Zoom platform. So it's a instructor there, and then there's also a second person for safety reasons and to help moderate the session. So if there's need for any individual help or setup or support, we've got that moderator as well as our instructor there. There's a couple key tools that we use for the purposes of this program. And these are really for our participants to monitor how they're feeling during classes. So we use this rating of perceived exertion or rating of perceived effort scale. And this is a great tool. So, I've got a smartwatch on, it can track if I'm doing activity and how high my heart rate goes, etc. But the 0 to 10 scale is a really nice way just to monitor. And this can be really important, especially for individuals on treatment or those that are experiencing negative side effects like cancer-related fatigue, because you need to monitor how hard you're working to ensure that every time you move, you feel energized and not more fatigue, right? So we want energy levels to go up and fatigue to stay down, including after you're done. Right? And so using this tool is a great way for people to monitor when they're doing these Excel classes or ACE classes, how they're feeling. The other 2 tools that we like to use are these fatigue and energy thermometers. So pre-class, where's your fatigue level and where's your energy level? And I can tell you from years of using these tools, often we have people coming into class tell us, oh, I'm pretty fatigued coming in and my energy's low. And then we use these tools at the end of class to say, okay, well, where are you now? And we see the exact opposite. Fatigue goes down, energy goes up. So this is a great tool for participants to actually see, oh man, these classes actually make me feel better each time I do them. So I may not feel great coming in. I may not want to each day. It's like, oh, am I really going to do this? Especially if it's new to you, right? And you're starting to build the habit, but starting to see the shift that can happen each and every class. And then that shift hopefully starts to be maintained over time for you of decreased fatigue, increased energy with more and more movement in your usual activities. You've seen this slide before. This is integrated into our Excel and ACE programs. We use an exercise and educate model. So within our programs, individuals are given the resources to build these behavior change strategies and skills. And we have additional webinars for Excel participants to really learn more about some of these really important factors beyond the exercise prescription, right? We can take anybody and teach them how to do a squat, how to do a bicep curl, right? But giving you these skills will help you build the habit of moving more. Now, oftentimes we get a lot of different questions when people hear about it. It's like, well, yeah, my cancer's okay, but I've got a bad hip. Or I've never done this before. Like, is it really going to be okay for me to join in? Or I don't have equipment. How can I exercise? Right? And we know that with our program, we've designed it to really meet each individual, wherever they're at. So you can have been a marathon trainer and come into Excel, and you could have been somebody who's never been physically active your entire life. Or you were active when you were last a teenager and never since then. Right? And so we can bring you in, and the beauty of exercise is we can tailor and adapt it to meet anybody wherever they are at. By having that pre-screening piece, so we test you as you come into that before you start the classes, we can then tailor the exercise to you, and the instructor will know that information to ensure that if we know you have a bad hip or we know you're dealing with cancer-related fatigue, we'll help you modify during each and every class to ensure that you're going to get the most that you can out of the program. And, you know, we get that feedback from our participants from years of doing ACE, but also now Excel, where we've had, I think we're up to almost 700 people over the first couple of years joining our Excel program across Canada. And I'll let you see some of these quotes here and read them about the impact this program has. It's not just about the fitness, right? It's about so much more than the fitness. It's about the support and then really this community that you're joining that really is supporting and promoting your wellness across the cancer journey. And so with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to our most important speaker today, and that is Ruth, who has been a participant in our program, and she's going to speak for the next couple minutes really about what the Excel program has meant for her. So Ruth, over to you.
Thank you, Nicole. What I found about the Excel programs, because I do live in a rural area, it is nice to be able to do an exercise class with other people because I don't get access to very many people living out in the rural area, and I have immunocompromised system, so I can't be around a lot of people. So I don't feel comfortable going to a class somewhere where I have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to the class. So for me, Excel was really beneficial in me being able to have a social and an exercise program that was twice a week only. So I didn't have a lot of commitment, and I could pick the days and the times and have something that worked into my schedule. I enjoyed the two different instructors we had, one on Tuesdays and one Thursdays, one from Calgary, one from Halifax, different kinds of personality, different kinds of music, different kinds of cueing that they did for us. And they both were very well trained, I believe, and had lots of alternatives for anybody who had questions about, well, I don't have a sore arm, or I can't do the push-up part. Well, how do you can you show me something different to do? So there was lots of variety in what alternatives you can do if you physically can't do what the exercise program showed for that day. I really appreciated getting information sheets before the classes for that week, so you could see what the exercises are going to be for that week and how many seconds or minutes each exercise was going to be done, then you can kind of say like, oh, I think I could do a minute of that. I couldn't do 3 minutes. So that would be nice to know ahead of time that you have those kinds of exercises for that week. I enjoyed having the well-prepared instructors. They always seemed to be ready on time. All the participants, it was kind of like a group support system, but we didn't talk a lot about our conditions or how we were feeling emotionally. But throughout the class, you might make a comment about, oh, today I don't feel so well. I had this bad thing happen to me. So there was that support from other people saying, oh, I know how you feel. I've had that bad day too. So it wasn't just feeling alone exercising. You still got to see the other people. I wouldn't usually watch what they were doing exercise wise. I was watching the instructor. So I didn't see, I couldn't compare myself to other people, which was good, because you want to be able to exercise what your ability is, not having a competition with somebody else. But I had a competition with myself during the program just to, okay, I couldn't or didn't feel confident to try jumping jacks. Because I had hip replacement surgeries a couple years ago, and then I had all my cancer treatments, and I didn't feel like I'm strong enough. So I just started with what we were doing, step touch or different movements that were low impact. And then one day I just decided I'm going to try some jumping jacks on the spot, because we had a minute of a cardiovascular portion of the exercise program with Excel. And I thought, I'm going to try. And I thought, oh, I can do some jumping jacks for like 20 seconds, a minute of cardiovascular. Maybe I can try 30 seconds the next day. So it gave me that confidence to try different things like the push-ups. I'm not very happy about push-ups. My wrists bother me or whatever, but they gave us alternatives so that you could get some confidence in the type of exercise that you were going to try. Now, benefits to me personally too was that I felt safe in the class, that there was somebody watching me and making sure I was safe and that I was doing the exercise properly. They would see my posture and they would tell me, oh, you're doing the wrong exercise. The band is supposed to be behind you, not in front of you. So you're not working the right chest muscles. So that really helped. And if my internet connection dropped off for some reason, I would get a call, make sure are you okay? So that helped too, to feel confident and to be in a support type of situation. I have passed along some information about the Excel program onto my local unit. I live, of course, in a rural area, not in a town even, but there's a town about 15, 20 minutes away from me, has a hospital and has a family and community support services group. So I've passed along Excel information to them to give to their clients that they know are cancer survivors or cancer patients, because I don't know of anyone in my little subdivision where I live, but they have a broader network that hopefully that they can pass along information to. And I couldn't compare myself to others in every sense of the word, because I don't know what everyone was going through, or the pain or the depression or the anxiety people have, but it was good just to see other people that were trying to do activity together and ask questions all the way through the class. We felt we could ask questions. There was no reason not to ask questions. We felt comfortable to ask questions. Nobody was laughed at. Nobody was saying, oh, that's not a good question. We were all feeling like confident enough to be able to talk to the instructors during the class, and even after class, the instructors were more than happy to wait till everyone else ended the Zoom meeting, but the people who had questions specific to them could hang on and speak to the instructors, or we could come on earlier than the allotted time and speak to the instructors. And you have to learn to be kind to yourself. And as Nicole said, listen to your body. Is your body saying, oh, I can't do that today, maybe I'll try it another day? But don't give in to the fatigue and say, well, I'm tired today. Do little bits. If you can do a little bit, that brings you the confidence and the security in your body that, oh, I can do a little bit of that. I can do this lying down. I do exercises lying down in the morning, some stretches or some muscle work in my stomach or some weights. You can do it sitting down, watching TV, little hand weights. Like there's something you can do, hopefully, that brings you out of that fatigue state or the depressed state. And you have to find what it is for you, because everybody's individual. It might not work for you doing bicycling, or someone mentioned about swimming. They feel swimming, but then I would have to go to a pool, and the closest pool to me is like an hour and a half away. So I have to find things at home that work for me. And again, just find some things that make you feel good. If music helps you feel good, play music, sing along, go on YouTube. So much stuff available online. If you can find something that makes you happy, or try different things every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. That is an awesome message. And I really loved that competition with yourself versus others. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And it's really about where were you when you started and where can you get to, right? And it's all part of the journey. So thank you for sharing your story and your engagement in Excel. I think that speaks volumes to, the purpose of Excel and what we are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll leave you with, importantly, our contact information. So if there's anything you heard today or you want to know more about Excel in particular, our wellness lab at ucalgary.ca is the best way to reach us via email. And again, our website is there. So if you're interested in resources there, please do go online and check us out. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to stop share and open it up to questions. And I know Catherine's looking at them, and feel free to chat or type more into the Q&A, and we'll try to get to everything now.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Culos-Reed. That was an amazing presentation. Ruth, thank you so much. That was such great information. We're just going to go to the first question. How far is it true that cancer cells cannot survive in well oxygenated blood, for which exercising is an important factor?
That's a really great question. I will start by saying, I'm not my area of expertise wouldn't be in that direct physiological mechanisms of how cancer grows and even the physiological mechanisms of exercise. But that's a great question. There are some resources looking at those potential physiological pathways. So how exercise impacts immune system function, things like oxygenation in the blood, and lots of work being done, basic science work, looking at some of that. So if the person who posted that is interested, they can reach out to me and I'm happy to pass on those resources. But I can't really speak to what the state of the literature is at this point in time, looking at specific mechanisms. Our work focuses on the exercise is good, whether it works on immune function, whether it works at physiological mechanisms, whether it's serotonin levels in the brain, right? So we're focused just on using that role of exercise to improve kind of well-being.
Great, thank you. Is walking intense enough for aerobic activity recommendation?
Yes, absolutely. So I tell individuals, when you see that guideline for moderate to vigorous activity, think about being late for an appointment and that brisk walk, right? So when you are walking with purpose, that will absolutely get you into that moderate zone at a minimum. The vigorous, maybe it's then really you're pushing it hard, and you might try that for a couple minutes, then dial it back to moderate. But walking is our number one activity. Most people can do it. You don't need a lot of specialized equipment, just a decent pair of runners. And so even if you're starting below, it's especially if going through treatment, just that light stroll, you might not hit that moderate, you could hit the mild level, but that's still great. And it can afford many benefits, physical, fitness, and psychosocial benefits, even if you don't hit that moderate guideline level.
Great. Next question. I have been on prednisone for over a year. I have a fair bit of muscle deconditioning, and I'm wondering about what programs are available to help with that. Any suggestions on how to recover properly and safely? I am encountering new muscle and joint pains as I taper off the prednisone as well.
Yeah.
How do I push myself without creating injuries that last longer than normal muscle recovery?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And we know that muscle arthalgia, the pain, joint pain, can be commonly associated with many of the treatments, including steroid use. So what I would say is, working on engaging and building muscle mass, really important to have that trained clinical exercise physiologist expertise there to ensure that they're structuring that program at levels that would be acceptable and would enhance benefits without any undue risk, right? With no increased risk to the individual. So if they're not used to engaging in strength training activities, resistance training, having that expertise for that feedback would be absolutely critical. A program like Excel is able to tailor and adjust to that, right? To show the individual, okay, here's how we can tailor exercise. I didn't get into it, but within our Excel program, we essentially work on what we call our stoplight system. So there's 3 levels of programming, and we can adjust any exercise down or up. So green light's the optimal program, red light's the easiest program, yellow light program is somewhere in the middle, right? And that's really how our programming works, so that there's never this all or none mentality with exercise, that it's always we can tailor and adjust. When we're talking muscle pain, joint pain, we do want to be careful with resistance activities, but we absolutely do need to help to build the muscle mass up. So we're using, maybe for starters, body weight activities before we'd add any resistance with additional weights or bands or anything in, to be sure that we're protecting the joints. And then it's about the right technique doing those activities. So modifying as necessary to ensure there is no pain. It's not that Jane Fonda era of no pain, no gain, right? There should never be pain. Exercise should always feel good while you're doing it, and then no rebound pain or fatigue after.
Thank you. Our next question. How do exercise influence the draining of cancer cells from our lymph nodes?
I'm afraid I can't answer that one. That's very specific to kind of mechanisms. And I don't know that draining of cancer cells from lymph nodes, the lymphatic system is your drainage system. So I don't know that exercise per se would move cancer cells through that system. But yeah, an interesting question, but not one I have the capacity or the expertise in to answer.
That's okay. So is physical activity more important for cancer survivors than it is for someone who hasn't had cancer?
That is a great question. So I think physical activity is important for all of us. And yet we know most individuals don't meet our Canada's physical activity guidelines, right? So the vast majority of people in our society are not moving enough, not exercising enough to get the benefits that we know come with exercise. When we see somebody who is managing a chronic disease such as cancer, essentially I like to look at it as there's more to gain, right? So they faced additional detriments to the individual who isn't managing a chronic disease. And so it's even more important that we're supporting and building those exercise resources that are specific and tailored to meet their unique needs, right? So it can't just be a go start exercising in your general community, because maybe that trainer there has no idea about how cancer has impacted their body and doesn't therefore know how we need to adjust the prescription and then the last part of that training in just the general community, they may not have those additional cancer supports and resources. And what Ruth talked to, right? That ability to connect with others who are going through a similar experience, who know what it feels like to have a bad day or to be more fatigued. So I think that all comes into then why is there this necessity for exercise oncology specific resources. So yeah, important for all of us. All of us need to move more to gain for individuals who have had a cancer diagnosis.
Great, thank you for that. I'm going to go to our next question. I'm a swimmer. I'm in my 13th year of having blood cancer, so I'm quite immune compromised. How safe is it for a person such as myself to swim in public pool at a Y or freshwater lake water?
Mm-hmm. Really great question. We've had this question many times over the years, and people asking us to build water-based programs and not. So I think one of the big factors is the safety in public pools, right? And we know that that environment may be more conducive to more germs, right? Pool decks, common areas, even the type of chlorine or salt water can impact it and can impact skin comfort in those settings as well. So yeah, I think there are cautions that have to be exercised depending on the immunocompromised nature of the participant to consider going into those public places in general. And now when we have a pandemic on top of it, even more so, right? So I would say be cautious, speak to your healthcare provider to see what their recommendations and guidelines would be first and foremost. The open lakes, the oceans, lake swimming, I'm not aware of any literature that suggests that that would be more risky or not. But again, worth speaking to the healthcare provider just to get their thoughts. If you love swimming though, I would encourage you to see what you can do to make sure you're doing it in a safe environment and that you can get that activity in.
Perfect. Joint pain is making it difficult to exercise, even yoga hurts. What can I do that's joint friendly?
Yeah, that's a really good one. We absolutely know that moving more can then help with the joint pain, but it's also then a barrier to even get started, right? And so it is this fine balance. If the joint pain is uncontrollable, so it's just stopping activity, again, it's to the healthcare provider to see what else can be done. And I know it's that fine balance being on steroids versus not, and finding that sweet spot where maybe meds can help so that you can move more. Because when it's stopping you completely from moving more, then, it's hard to say, well, just move more, because you can't, it is too sore.
Right.
So I think, again, healthcare provider speaking about what's available medically to maybe take away some of the pain. In terms of what activities, it's really a bit of testing what works for your body. I mean, I would advocate for yoga, really gentle therapeutic yoga. So we've developed a program called Yoga Thrive, which is yoga for individuals with cancer. And we've trained yoga instructors across the country. So seeing if there's a Yoga Thrive instructor near you, because that is a therapeutic yoga designed to address the very unique needs, including joint pain, and making sure that people are working within a comfortable range of motion, and building strength in the muscles that support those joints, right? Really important, because often we have joint pain because the muscles around there are weak and they're not stabilizing that joint. And so looking into more therapeutic yoga, and specifically Yoga Thrive, which you can see more on our website about that, and the resources available there.
Thank you. So how do you make exercise fun and less boring? How do you make it so that you like it and want to do it, even on the days where you just rather not?
Awesome. For lots of people, exercise is fun, right? If you haven't grown up with that as your lifestyle and played sports or done activities. And so I often say this is kind of like broccoli for some people, right? Like broccoli for many people is not a vegetable that you inherently like, or maybe it's Brussels sprouts. But man, if you add a good ranch dip or you roast it up and change it a little bit, then all of a sudden it's more appealing. So look at exercise in the same way. And I think what's appealing for one person may not necessarily be so for another. So for many people, it's more about the class and what we build with Excel and ACE. They tell us they're not there for the exercise. They're there to connect with the other individuals, right? And it's a little bit harder when it's like Excel and it's all online, as Ruth mentioned. Sometimes it's harder to talk and get those connections, but we've specifically built Excel to have pre and post discussion times so that we can bring the community together. So sometimes it's more about that, and then it's the coffee after when you're in person, or just the chat time after online. Other ways to make it fun, Ruth mentioned music. And so music can be a great way to make it more fun, but sometimes it can be seen as a distraction, right? Like, oh, I'm singing and dancing along and moving my body, and all of a sudden the exercise time is gone. So that can be a way to do it. Having success, right? When you do something and you're not very good at it, it's kind of like we're not built to just continually hit our heads against the wall. We don't want to keep doing activities that we're not good at. So as Ruth mentioned again, starting where it's comfortable for your body, start low, listen to your own body, and don't compare yourself to others. Just see where you can go with that movement. When you are able to do something that enhances your confidence, things generally seem to be more fun when you've got the confidence to do them. So I think all of those things taken into consideration. I think workout buddy, walking partner, if you can find somebody that can do it with you, if you're in person in real life, that can be an amazing way to, again, have a chat while you're walking, and all of a sudden your 20-minute walk is done.
Excellent. So we're going to go down to our last two questions for the presentation.
Yep.
So my myeloma produced tumors on my upper spine and sternum, which ended up fracturing. I am through treatment and pain-free. Can I re-injure my spine or sternum through rotational movements such as canoeing or swimming?
Yes. So yeah, there are flexion, there are rotation movements that would be contraindicated for anybody who's got spinal metastases or even just weakness in those areas. So similar to, when people are osteopenic or osteoporotic, right? That we see that there are risks. And that's where, again, having that trained and qualified exercise professional who can assess the individual and then make sure that they're tailoring the movements to that individual. And then anything where it's a rotation, really what we would focus on is strengthening through the core to ensure the core is very strong to support that movement, but then making sure in conjunction with that medical screening component that when we are saying for that individual, okay, here's where you have issues, whether it's spinal, upper body, etc., that we're then tailoring the movement to it. So a canoeing motion may be contraindicated for that individual. And again, checking with the healthcare provider, medical screening, and the qualified exercise professional to tailor movements or activities that they can build up the strength to be able to do some of that safely would be absolutely critical.
Great. And our last question, are care partners allowed to join cancer patients in the ACE and EXCEL programs?
Yeah, excellent question. So right now in our baseline programs, they are just for the individuals with the cancer diagnosis. Now, that being said, we recognize caregiver support persons as absolutely critical. And we know when we can integrate them that they can actually increase the likelihood of developing that habit. So both ACE and EXCEL have maintenance programs. So after the 12-week sessions, individuals are provided with a whole host of resources to continue to build their habit. And those include our maintenance programs, which do become fee-based so that they can be sustainable over time, right? The grant funds the baseline. There's no charge for any of our baseline resources and programs, but the maintenance programs have a charge. And if the individual that is the caregiver support person wants to join in, they can in those settings in the maintenance program. We also do in Calgary have a recharge program, which is for caregivers. We recognize that caregivers often have as much emotional distress, have changes in their physical functioning because they may be focused on the individual, not looking after themselves. And so Dr. Colleen Cuthbert was a PhD student in my lab, and she developed this recharge program. So we still run that. We do run it online, so it could be open to people outside of Calgary as well. So if you have a caregiver who's really interested in exercise, you can email us at that wellness lab and we can share those resources and see if our recharge program might be something they're interested in.
Thank you. So many great questions, just not enough time to answer them all live. But as Sonia mentioned, we will be circling back with those of you whose questions did not get answered today. Dr. Culos-Reed, I'm going to ask you to share your screen again and go to our second last slide.
Perfect. This one here?
Yes, exactly. Great. So I just wanted to thank Dr. Culos-Reed for sharing your expertise and insight with all of us today. It was such a great experience having you here. But before we sign off, I would like to thank everyone who attended any of the Your Life After Cancer conferences, including this one today, but especially if you've attended all week. We'll be posting all the recordings of these presentations on our website in the coming weeks. We would like to thank Kite, a Gilead company, and Pfizer for making the Your Life After Cancer conference possible. Next slide, please. And finally, remember that we are here for you. You can reach us by email by visiting our website, bloodcancer.ca, or by calling toll-free. Please note that a short survey will be sent to all participants after this presentation. Please take a moment to respond to help us plan beneficial events for you in the near future. Thank you for being with us and take good care of yourself.